listening to the Fantasy Takeaway Podcast with Murphy Hamilton and Joe Pollock. Proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Subscribe, listen, take home the title.
What's up, Takeaway Nation? Welcome in to the 2019 Don't Panic episode, otherwise known as the Week 1 Review. Jeff, Joe, are y'all panicking yet?
No, it was the outlier week.
No, I'm not panicking at all. I just shake uncontrollably like this for no reason all the time.
Like a little chihuahua sitting in the chair, right? Just whimpering.
Yeah.
I had teams that I panicked on after week 1 last year, but it was because they were riskier teams. Like when I'm watching guys like Mike Evans that totally crapped the bed, he was sick. Like there's so many guys that Joe Mixon, like I'm kind of worried about the injury, but he was injured. Like we don't have to worry about his role. He was getting the ball when he was on the field. So, you know, I think we're good on a lot of these guys that people are freaking out and trying to trade.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if someone's going to overpay for a player right now, you know, you've got one of these rookies that just popped today or Sunday rather, and someone wants to give you the farm for him. I might take advantage of their fear and panic and trying to jump in and grab that guy.
Yeah,
you should.
But I'm not trying to sell any of my guys that, you know, like a Mike Evans or a Joe Mixon. No, I'm going to hold
or a
tight.
Todd Gurley.
Or a Todd Gurley.
Keep your
Yeah.
Todd Gurley. Like if he had 2 touchdowns in that game, nobody would have said a damn thing.
Yeah, it would have been, Todd Gurley's a huge value. I mean, the guy had 97 yards. You know, I don't see Malcolm Brown being that goal line back all year long.
I don't either.
Well, guys, I wanted to start the show off with that because, you know, as most everybody knows, Joe and I run the NFL Fantasy Football Discussion Group on Facebook. And just throughout the weekend, like from kickoff on Sunday to this moment, I've seen so many, should I drop this guy posts? You know, is this guy going to be worth it? You know, it blows my mind how after a single game, maybe a single half, people just start jumping off the hype trains and freaking the hell out. And it's just wrong. Stop it.
I was guilty on Todd Gurley, though. About halfway through the second quarter, I was freaking out.
Well, Joe, you're an example.
Yeah, I was a little nervous. I'm a Gurley owner, and I was a little nervous on that. But then finally the fourth quarter came around. They decided to just keep handing him the rock. And all I could think is you couldn't do this near the goal line.
Yeah, totally. He would have scored, like they would have had fewer plays run at the goal line.
Absolutely.
If they would have just put him in the goal line packages.
All right, guys. Well, we got a pretty jam-packed show tonight. We got some news and notes coming your way. We're going to do a review of our week 1 sheep dates, our booth review segment. I'm super excited to get back into that. A new segment called The Takeaway, and we're going to wrap it up with our waiver wire pickups and tapping the wire. You guys ready to hop into this?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Do it.
All right, Joe, news and notes.
News and notes from across the NFL.
Guys, honestly, there isn't very much news. We're going to do an injury roundup, kind of comprehensive view on our Thursday episode, so nothing for now. But as far as news and notes, I just want to jump into AB. I see Jeff in the script here adding AB. Jeff, it's not that big a deal unless you hate the Patriots, which I do. So it's a big deal.
I loathe the Patriots at this point.
I think it's a big deal because if this is allowed to stand and people are allowed to do what Antonio Brown did, it could ruin the parity in the NFL. Like if you go to a team, you're already on a veteran deal, so you skip waivers as soon as you get off of the team. If you don't want to play for your team anymore, just don't show up. That's what we learned here. Because Antonio Brown used social media consultants to figure out how he could get kicked off of the Raiders so that he could go sign with the Patriots. And I've got a feeling that this was happening when Antonio Brown still played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Raiders got totally catfished.
Did either of you see the video of his reaction to getting cut today?
Yes. I mean, I saw it yesterday when they posted it, but yes.
Still, that video right there, that's not the Antonio Brown we saw on Hard Knocks, not a couple weeks earlier. He wanted to be on the show. He wanted to use the media attention, and then he wanted to get the hell out of there. That's it.
And I don't think he ever had an intention to play for the Raiders. I don't think back when he signed that contract, I think he knew he wasn't playing a single game for that team.
Well, that Hard Knocks, would he have been gone weeks earlier?
Yeah, I mean, he would have been a lot happier if he was in New England 3 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, because he would have wanted to play against Pittsburgh on Sunday night. Make no mistake. He probably orchestrated all this so he could try to get onto New England's roster against Pittsburgh. Didn't realize he wasn't going to be able to play.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest takeaway from this for us, I guess, is that none of us like this. None of us really like the Patriots, so we don't like to see them get another fantastic weapon. They already had Josh Gordon back without that much issue. So why this? Why God?
the competitive balance of the league, whatever. It's just this sets a nasty precedent for me. Even if it wasn't the Patriots, if this was the Eagles, or if this was any other team that was already good, I would still have a problem with it. Like, heck, even if the Broncos were this good, I would have a nasty feeling in my stomach about something like this happening where my team benefited.
Well, I don't think we're going to see an investigation. I don't think we're going to see anything about this, but I feel like the league is probably going to have something in the CBA to protect teams, and this will be used as the prime example. It'll be like an Antonio Brown rule. They don't want to necessarily bring up any kind of issues with the NFLPA pre-negotiations. They're probably just going to use this in negotiation when they start working out the new CBA.
Yeah, absolutely. And they need to. They absolutely need to fix this. They need to fix the franchise tag, and they need to fix the holdouts even before the franchise tag happens.
Agreed. Like the Zeke situation, now the Melvin Gordon situation, like these guys need to be, they're under contract. They need to show up. Now, I fully understand the owner standpoint, obviously, of, hey, guys under contract, he's got to play. But I also get the players' beef too, where it's like, hey, man, they can cut me at any time. Where's my contract? Like, I get it. It can go either way. But it's one of those situations where they've got to figure this out, because it's going to ruin the parity of the league. And I feel like it's going to start setting up what the NBA has with their super teams.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why I won't watch the NBA anymore. I'm just over that product. And I know a lot of people love it now, but I'm just way past over it.
I agree completely. I think that the NBA is one of the most boring leagues in all of sports, just because you know who's going to be there. There's going to be 3 teams. Like, having Toronto win was fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they weren't supposed to do it. But like, that happens once every 10 or 15 years? That happens in the NFL pretty often. I mean, other than the Patriots killing it every year.
Sure. But even the Patriots have lost the Super Bowl. I mean, they lost to Philly when they weren't really supposed to. And, they should have lost to Atlanta. But,
But Kyle Shanahan's an idiot. Yeah.
That's, hey, you leave my coach's name out of your mouth. All right.
No,
Cheap shots early on in the show.
He deserves it, man.
I don't know if you can hear me cracking my knuckles over the mic right now.
You're pretty far away. I've got some time to hide if you're going to run over here.
That's true. Yeah, I got to get on a plane. I got to get a ticket. I got to get through security. It's a disaster.
Joe, just go to Miami and hide with the defense. No one will ever find you.
Absolutely. Wow, that was bad. Holy cow, right?
Yeah, it was absolutely awful. And it makes me sad to be like all excited about Minkah Fitzpatrick and have him on that defense.
He's probably the guy that asked for a trade.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Wouldn't blame him. Or what about Xavier Howard? I mean, he just got paid, but he could certainly get out too.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Antonio Brown just proved it.
Yeah.
Sign a contract and go somewhere else.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, guys, that'll do it for news. Again, we are going to do a comprehensive injury roundup on Thursday. We want to get all the medical reports and everything in, and have it all settled so we can give you guys the full information. So let's move on to our cheap dates review. Joe, you got a drop for me?
Nope.
Oh, well. Let's dive into this. We're going to call it the cheap date review / Murphy abuse segment, because I absolutely killed myself this week. I didn't kill it. I killed myself. Starting with quarterbacks, I had Jacoby Brissett, 16.5. That was probably my only all right call of the week.
It was a great call for DFS. That's 4X in DFS, basically.
Yeah, I actually really like the Brissett pick. He didn't get the most points out of our group, but man, that was a hell of a pick.
You guys can stop being nice now. I'm preparing myself for the complete crap I'm about to get in a few minutes, so you can just go ahead and start now. I mean, again,
don't you worry, Peanut. It's coming.
Jeff, you had Jimmy G and Kyler Murray. We're going to go with Kyler Murray as your guy, 21.62. That last quarter saved you.
Yeah, it really did. I don't know what that offense is still. I'm really kind of apprehensive about that whole group right now.
Well, we'll get into that more in a minute. You're going to talk a bit more about that offense. Joe, you had Nick Foles. That was just bad luck. 7 points, but broke his collarbone in less than 10 minutes into the game. So what are you going to do?
Exactly. What are you going to do? And that ruined my tight end pick too, because obviously Minshew had better chemistry with Oshiga Hennessy. See?
That's all, folks.
Hennessy. Key and Peele. That's what I get when I hear his name every time. I'm going to send you to Oshag Hennessy's office.
That's what it looks like when it's spelled. It's funny.
All right, let's move on to running backs. I had TJ Yeldon, big old fat goose egg. Jeff, you had Chris Carson, 24.1 points, but Joe has a problem with that.
It's cheating. I mean, like, I guess I should have explained this segment better, but this segment is usually players who are less than 50% owned in redraft. And I guess that when I said less than 50% owned, you thought I meant in DFS?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was like, well, everybody's under 50% owned in DFS. Like that's not bad. I mean, the chalk is like 22, and that's right where Chris Carson fell into. So I was just like, well, this is easy. Give me Chris Carson.
If it angers Joe, I'll allow it. I mean, Jeff, you and I have the majority vote here, so
he's just mad because his guy only got 3.7 points.
I mean, he missed like half the game going through concussion protocol. I got such bad luck in this. I'm giving myself a mulligan on the whole thing.
You would.
Can I have a mulligan?
No.
All right, let's move into wide receivers. I had Hunter Renfrow, but as of recording this episode, we are in the second quarter of the Broncos game, so we still don't know how that's going to pan out. But knowing my luck,
right now the Raiders are in 3 wide, and he's not on the field. So I don't know what that means for you.
That's scary.
It means that I crapped the bed this week. Better weeks are coming. Let's get Mike right back on the show, right, Joe?
Yeah,
I'll have my
he's
best
your
week of
good
the
luck
season.
charm.
All right, Jeff, you had Adam Humphries 1.5 points.
Ugh, it was just painful. It was hard to watch. I really thought he'd be over the middle more. It turns out A.J. Brown is going to be that guy. And, hey, if that's the case, then he might be a guy we have to talk about later as somebody to go grab off the wire.
I would be first in my $4,000 DFS league if I would have listened to myself instead of you, Jeff.
I mean, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, you should be.
At least not the only one getting crapped on in this segment.
Who did you want again?
Terry McLaurin. I should have played Terry McLaurin. He was my cheap date.
Yeah, I really liked McLaurin too. I was like, I like that one a lot.
I loved his film coming out. Like the fit was so perfect in Washington. He was probably the cheap date that I was most confident in those like super lowly owned guys. Even I didn't see that game come in. That was crazy.
What's funny is I actually did own him on one of my 10 DFS lineups, and I had to start him in one of my leagues. So I was pretty pumped about.
Jeff. Yeah. You're welcome.
I did draft him on my own, but thank you.
Sure you did, Jeff. Sure you did.
That's true. I usually do have you come over and actually press the button that says draft now. So
I heard you were an avid podcast listener of the Fantasy Takeaway.
I have been for a while.
I appreciate that, Jeff.
All right, guys, let's move into tight ends. I had Charles Clay, 1.5 points. Again, I didn't do good this week. Let's just keep moving. Jeff, you had Mark Andrews, 24.8 points. Bravo, sir.
Boom, shakalaka.
Keeping the tradition alive here at the Fantasy Takeaway.
I just had a feeling here. And it was a good day. It was a feeling, not a feeling. I did have a feeling, and it let me down pretty badly. No, the Mark Andrews thing, that was one of the situations where you kind of read the chemistry, right? And it just seems like if he's on the field, Lamar likes to look for him. It's a security blanket type thing for him. And it seemed like an easy mark going against Miami. And I expect more of the same for the New England pass catchers in week 2.
Absolutely, for the New England pass catchers. Do you think he's a sell high candidate? Like if you can get top 7 or 8 value out of him at the tight end position? Because he only had like a 30% snap share in that game.
With how often they run 2 and 3 tight, I feel like even at a lower snap share percentage, he's going to see that number kind of tick up. I just don't. I don't know if the other guys will hold water outside of Hurst. Like I think it'll be he and Hurst down the back half of the season. I'm going to hold on Andrews. He's especially in Dynasty. If it's redraft and somebody says, "Hey, I'll give you Ertz for him," okay. If I can get Ingram for him, okay. But I don't know if I'm going to make that move for like a Vance McDonald or like Jared Cook or one of those guys that's kind of that fringe 5, 6, 7, 8 tight end. I'll probably hold tight with Andrews.
Where's your line at like wide receiver? Like who's the lowest guy you take
over Andrews
in exchange for him?
Oh,
say you've got 2 tight ends and Andrews was at the back of your bench with 25 points this week.
I mean, this kind of comes down to roster construction, right? So if you're loaded up and you've got 2 great tight ends and someone wants to overpay for Andrews and they're going to give you a guy that you can plug in as your wide receiver 3 or as a flex, the guy's going to start for you every week, then I think you have to take the deal. And I'd have to actually go and really drill down my rankings and ratings to see where that line is. But it would have to be somebody who's going to put up those wide receiver, 2, 3 numbers.
Somebody that's like a fringe wide receiver 2 in your personal rankings.
Yeah.
All right. And Joe, you had Jeff Swain, 5.7 points. You already mentioned that Nick Foles going down kind of hurt this for you. But again, a tight end getting you 5.7 points, that's kind of par for the course at this point, right?
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, this week was kind of unusual. There were a lot more guys that scored 10-plus points this week than we were used to seeing over the last couple of years. So hopefully that's a trend. Hopefully tight end isn't the desert that it has been over the last few years, but we'll see.
Whoa, don't overreact, Joe. Don't overreact.
That's why there was the hopefully in there.
We actually talked about this in the offseason a little bit, how tight end was such a wasteland last year and how it's probably going to see a tick forward this season. Because the top three guys, we know who they are. And then you had that second tier that's pretty good too. That top six was legit at tight end. And then you start seeing the emergence of guys like Andrews. And I like Darren Waller, the kid in Oakland, even though, Foster Moreau seems to be on the field an awful lot with him. There's enough of these other guys where it's becoming a more interesting position. And if you're in a tight end premium league, especially, like you need to kind of have all these guys and keep your eyes on all these additional tight ends that are popping up out of the woodwork.
Yeah, totally.
All right, that is it for our cheap date review. We will get you the full winner after Hunter Renfrow finishes, but I assume it's going to be one of you two guys.
It's going to be Jeff.
Well, I cheated.
Only because he cheated, right?
Yeah. You got a mulligan and I cheated, so we'll just have to call this week a draw. I mean, a draw between Joe and I.
Even if you take out your cheater pick, though, you still, I think, beat me because your quarterback was better. But you also picked two quarterbacks, so
Well, I mean, they were kind of about what did Garoppolo put up in DK? I mean, it had to be close to what Murray did. It had to be right around 20 points, I think. He had a couple scores.
Well, I mean, Garoppolo only had 11.44. So, if we take the lower of yours, we were pretty close.
Sure. I mean, heck, if we cut the difference, we're right there.
Moving on to week 2.
All right, with that in the books and my crappy start in the books, let's keep moving into our booth review. Joe, I know you have a drop for this one.
Booth review.
All right, Jeff, you're up first. What was your first what to watch for and your takeaway from it?
I wanted to know if it was going to be DK time in Seattle. It's an offense that kind of intrigues me just because I feel like they can't run the ball the way they did last year. And, based on what we talked about with wide receiver rankings, I'm not as high on Lockett as everybody else. I just didn't feel like the volume was ever really going to be there. And so I felt like somebody else had to emerge. And my hope and prayer was that it was DK Metcalf. He comes out 489. I'll take that. No touchdowns, but that's not a bad day for the rookie. And if he's on your roster, you probably took him pretty late. So that's not a bad guy to have on your bench if he's going to give you that kind of line most weeks. I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I was kind of naysaying the whole DK Metcalf situation right after the draft because I was worried that he was going to get hyped up into the 6th, 7th round in redraft. And when he stayed in double-digit rounds all the way through the preseason, especially with the injury, I got on the train, man, because at that point with a player with that upside, I ended up owning like 4 or 5 shares of him out of my 8 leagues. So he's a guy that I'm really excited to see. I still don't think he's a good route runner, and I think he has a lot of trouble getting off of the line. But with his physical attributes and the way that they're trying to use him in that offense, I'm not sure it's going to matter at all.
Yeah, and I actually have 0 shares of him. I didn't get him anywhere. I was picking too late in every one of my leagues to be able to get my hands on him. I mean, I did grab him in a keeper league. I take that back. I drafted him late, non-rookie draft. But I mean, 1 out of, I don't know, in 10 or 11 leagues. It's a little underweight.
All right, Joe, you're up next. What was your first what to watch for?
Jeff, you and I were kind of prophetic with our first 2 here because I was looking at that Washington wide receiver core, specifically the young guys. And Terry McLaurin is a guy that I stashed on the back of a lot of rosters, especially in Dynasty, because he's one of those guys that had a really, really clear path to touches, and he crushed it. He absolutely crushed it. So he's a guy that I would suggest you go out there and pick up. There's guys in our next segment that I wouldn't say that about, guys that really had fluke performances, but I really don't think McLaurin's is all that fluky.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he's a really savvy route runner. He's got good enough measurables. He's shown great hands. Like I don't know what pushed him down the draft board. Obviously, we can go back and figure that out again. But he looked really, really good. Pretty excited about that. And as an addendum here, I just want to let everyone know we're in the second quarter of the Raiders-Broncos game, and we had a Hunter Renfrow sighting. So that's
he's got 2 receptions so far.
Boom, there you go. That was for you, Murph. I just wanted to get you a little bit of love out there. This wasn't the poo-poo on Murph segment.
And then it led into Josh Jacobs' first NFL touchdown. So
Whoop, it did.
All the excitement.
Yeah.
If Hunter Renfrow didn't go down to the 2, though, I could have started celebrating. You'd have heard me.
Boom.
All right, I'm up next. And guys, I was watching the Chargers running back game because, again, they said in the preseason it was going to be a 50-50 split, Jackson and Eckler. And I actually said, will Eckler's usage satisfy the fantasy community? Yes. The answer to that is emphatically yes. He had a day. Melvin Gordon's amount of money that he's going to get in his contract was lowered by about $1 or $2 million, I think. Not really, but it did really show that Gordon needs to get back in and actually play because they're doing this well with Eckler. They're going to be fine.
That was literally the worst thing that could have happened to Melvin Gordon was how
100%.
well he played in that game. It was just out of control, man. You know how many times Melvin Gordon's put up more points than that in PPR?
None?
0.
I'm going 1.
The only Chargers running back to ever put up more points than that, well, since 2000, was LaDainian Tomlinson. Did it like 13 times.
That's LT. Come on.
Yeah, the GOAT.
I mean, and he looked good. Eckler showed really good burst, great balance. He was doing a little bit of everything. I mean, he looked like a more complete back than Melvin Gordon. And Gordon's no slouch, but dang, if this guy stays healthy, like Melvin Gordon's going to have less than no leverage. And it's going to be a very disappointing holdout for him.
Did he not look a little bit more powerful between the tackles to you too?
A little bit.
Yeah, I don't feel like he was quite as tentative. Mel Gordon, I like Mel Gordon. I want to just, put that right out there. He's a good player. But I feel like he doesn't hit the hole with the same tenacity that Eckler does. He kind of gets in there, likes to pick and choose a little bit, and he tries to be able to find. Whereas Eckler will slam it right up in there despite his size. And he finds those little creases. Next thing you know, it's 9 yards.
All right, Jeff, we're back to you. Your second what to watch for was the Cardinals, correct?
Yeah, I wanted to see Kyler Murray in the air raid. I wanted to see if they were going to open this playbook up a little bit, maybe give us some different route concepts we haven't seen before. I just needed to see something because the preseason left us feeling so hot and cold. We weren't really sure what we were getting. And the Lions game was just a continuation of that. They were cold for about 3 quarters. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they came alive and, tied the game. And well, that's how it finished. I still am pretty apprehensive about this whole group. I don't know if I'm going to be trying to play any of them in DFS, and I'm glad outside of Kyler, I don't have a whole lot of ownership of anybody on this offense because I think this is going to be super frustrating all year long.
I think you can say that for everybody in that offense except for David Johnson. David Johnson's usage was insanely encouraging.
Well, and that's fair, but I think David Johnson, he's obviously a first-round pick there. I was thinking more like the Christian Kirks, the Larry Fitzgerald, who had a good day, but I don't know if that'll be consistent. You had the Sherfield kid popped up a couple times. You had Keyshawn Johnson there, the rookie out of Fresno State. He looked pretty decent. But you had all these different guys. Like, who's going to be the guy from week to week? Because they're not going to have enough balls to go around to keep all of them relevant, which makes it really hard to put them in your lineup from week to week.
Especially they were running 4 wide 70+% of the time. So, who's
exactly
going to get the ball?
Exactly.
All right, Joe, you're up next. What was your second what to watch for?
Was watching for the Eli Manning face on the sidelines, and we got to see it a little bit.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Daniel Jones isn't starting next week at this point. That would be a really big surprise if they came out and said that to us. But how long do you guys think it's going to be? Week 5, week 6, if they keep playing like that? Because that defense was awful.
I think it'll be until the Giants are legitimately out of playoff contention. If they get to the point where they've lost, 7, 8 games, I think that's enough. And then it'll become the Daniel Jones show.
Ironically enough, I had a customer come into my store today and he's from New York. He was very loud and obnoxious. No offense to New Yorkers, but he started talking about football. And of course, I could actually talk about that with him a little bit. And he immediately got onto the Giants and he was like, the Cowboys aren't that good. Who the hell have they played this year? The Giants suck ass. And I was like, man, when your own fan base is saying that out loud, that's not a good moment.
Yeah. It's bad for the Giants. Like, if that secondary is as bad as it looked against Dallas, like there was literally they had nothing. Like, they didn't cover anybody. And I like Michael Gallup's a good player. Amari Cooper's a guy that I've always liked. But are they that good? I don't think either of those two receivers are as good on a regular basis as they looked against that secondary.
I think they have a lot of guys on that offense that are really good fits for what Jason Garrett wants to do. I think Randall Cobb is the understated guy that's there. Amari, he's a 1. He can be Batman, so to speak. I really like Gallup and the step forward he's taken. You have an elite running back in Zeke, a great O-line, a more than serviceable quarterback. Like, Dallas is one of those teams that's, could realistically come out of the NFC. And that defense is good enough. Week 1, it's hard to really gauge a lot of this, right? It's it's still a lot of just kind of conjecture at this point because we've seen one game and most of these guys didn't play in the preseason. But the Giants got beat by a really good team. And I don't know that the Giants are that awful after watching teams like Miami play.
They're not in the Miami tier for me at all.
Yeah, I think Miami's in their own tier. And then there's like, I'm not even sure who else is close, but the Giants are so much better than Miami. I think the Giants could have put 40 on Miami.
All right, guys, I'll wrap this up. My last what to watch for was the Jets and Bills game. And there were a lot of questions going into this game, and there's still a lot of questions, but there's some encouraging stuff. Le'Veon Bell is still legit. They're going to play him a lot.
100% of the snaps. He had played on 100%.
And that was the worry, right? Going to New York, they were like, well, the Steelers used him a ton. The Jets may not. Well, no, they're going to use him a ton.
Yep.
So Le'Veon Bell owners can feel encouraged. John Brown had a good day.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
He was like top 15 in targets this week. He had 10 targets, I think.
There's still a lot to hash out with like Darnold and Allen, but this game was encouraging. I even said in the what to watch for, it's not the sexiest matchup in the NFL, and it definitely wasn't. But for fantasy, there were a lot of questions answered, and there's still a lot of questions to be answered. I want to see these teams play against other defenses because I really can't gauge in this game whether the Jets defense and the Bills defense are pretty solid or if this was just two middling teams playing against each other and having a solid day.
I think CJ Mosley is important for sure because he went down a little bit, and I don't know if it was just like, do we have a report on that at all? Have you guys seen anything?
Negative.
No, but that's why we're waiting on till Thursday for the injury roundup, guys. So we get all the reports.
We won't even mention him though, probably. Like we don't do much IDP in that segment.
All right, that'll do it for our booth reviews. Let's dive into this new segment, the takeaway. This would normally be where we do studs and duds, but we wanted to kind of scrap that. You guys know the top fantasy players at each position. All we really do is rehash some numbers and give you a couple of opinions, but I think this will be more fun. We're going to take our what to watch for idea, our booth reviews, and we're just going to pick some things that we took away from this week that we haven't already mentioned in our booth reviews and throw them out there. So, Joe, give me the drop.
The takeaway.
Joe, I'm going to punt it to you first. What is your takeaway from week one?
It's simple. It's trademark Ingram. And you're going to look at me like I'm crazy. He had 20 plus points in almost every scoring format. He had a great day, but he had 50 plus yards on one run, and he only got a 30% snap share in that game. So if you're looking at a guy that you should sell high on, for me, Mark Ingram is the epitome of that because they have a young running back in Justice Hill that they'd like to figure out what they have in. They want to get him some touches. They want to get him out in space. He's an athletic freak. And Gus Edwards, people are going to say this was because of the game script because it got late in the game and they were up by 50 points. But this was happening on the first series, on the second series, on the third series. Gus Edwards is in for a third of the snaps. And he even got the first goal line carry when Mark Ingram scored his touchdown. So if he gets in, we're talking about a totally different day for Mark Ingram. He's a guy that I think you should sell. You should find somebody who's not really up to speed on all of the snap shares and everything that really goes into predicting the future for fantasy, because he could very easily have a lower snap share going forward if Justice Hill breaks out, and then you're in a lot of trouble. You're sitting on a guy you won't even be able to sell.
That's interesting. I like that. I like getting right into trades right out of the gate. Makes me happy.
People are really big on trading early in the season too. Like you can get people because everybody wants to grab that guy. It's the same as the waiver wire.
Well, yeah, I like actually some early season trades because a lot of times you end up in leagues where you draft late, right? And someone's just using whatever BS rankings are on ESPN or whatever server you're using. And so the guy who wasn't paying attention all offseason now is on a level playing field with you. Now's your chance to go ahead and maybe buy low on some guys that disappointed. You know, you can go in and maybe put together a package, sell high on a couple dudes you have to go get the guys you really wanted to target. So I kind of dig it. I like, some of that early gamesmanship there to make a few deals early on.
Go get yourself some Mike Evans straight up from Mark Ingram today.
Ooh. I wonder.
You might be able to do it if the owner's panicking and he was sick. Like maybe they just aren't paying attention to the news. I'd give it a shot. Maybe get it for you could throw in the last guy on your bench if you don't need him.
The worst thing they can do is say no.
Yep. Give it a shot.
All right, Jeff, let's kick it to you. What is your takeaway from the weekend?
Man, I spent a lot of time watching the Jags-Chiefs game, and I love me some Gardner Minshew.
I miss you.
I'm glad I could give that drop just a second. We should give it another second just to marinate. Just breathe it in.
Minshew.
I quit. I'm done with this show. Tired of the both of you.
Come on.
Drink it in, Murph. It's okay. So look, he goes for 275 and 2, and that's not bad for a mid-late round rookie quarterback. But here's what I love. He was 22 of 25. He was incredibly accurate, and it was almost every throw. It's not like he was just hitting all these guys that were standing by themselves in space. He zipped some balls into some pretty tight little windows, and he hit guys in coverage and did just a hell of a job of producing in a bad situation against Kansas City. And now Jacksonville still got smacked, 40 to 26, but the Chiefs defense isn't awful. And for him to go 22 of 25, give you a couple of scores, get you 275, and he made some guys relevant. DJ Chark's putting up some numbers all of a sudden. You've got D.D. Westbrook is still relevant. There is enough on the bone there. Whereas I look forward and I'm like, well, in week 2, this guy's got the Texans and they just allowed a bunch of points to the Saints, who admittedly much better than Jacksonville offensively. And Minshew is no Drew Brees. I feel like that defense isn't markedly better than Kansas City's now that they've traded away Jadeveon and Clowney. So maybe an opportunity if you're in a 2 QB league or if you just need to stash a guy for later. That's go get you some Gardner Minshew.
He even made Chris Conley relevant, man.
Yeah.
He had a really solid game. It wasn't just that fluky opening game. Once people see what his skills are, they might defend him differently. But at this point, I think that if you're in a deeper league or a 2 QB league, I don't know how you can't go out and spend some fab on that guy if you're quarterback needy. He's going to be playing for at least 6 weeks.
Well, here's the deal. No one's going to go out and spend any fab on him in the first waiver run. So if your league is a situation where they go to free agency after waivers have cleared, get him for free. Or put in a minimum bid.
In a 2 QB 12-team league, he's probably getting picked up.
Okay, in a 2 QB 12-team league, he'll get picked up. But I might be willing, again, deeper rosters, trying to figure these things out, right? It's so many different league settings and formats. If I can put in a minimum bid, like a $1 bid or whatever your minimum is, I might just throw it out there and see if I snag him. Stick him on the end of my bench, and if he turns into, the second coming of Tom Brady, then cool, I've got something. If he's nothing, well, I didn't give up anything.
All right, guys. Well, my takeaway is that the Colts are going to be all right. I don't know if anybody really realized this weekend, but they didn't play a bad game. Losing Andrew Luck does suck. They're not going to be like an AFC Championship game contender. They're going to be a wild card at best. But if Adam Vinatieri didn't miss 2 kicks into the same end zone, was just fine on the other side of the field. But if he didn't miss those 2 kicks
and an extra point,
yeah, and they would have won that game.
Yep.
So, and the Chargers aren't a bad team. So, I mean, again, the Colts are going to be just fine. T.Y. Hilton had a fantastic fantasy day. Of course, you're downgrading players like Ebron and all that, but Jacoby Brissett's going to be all right. T.Y. Hilton's going to be all right. And there's going to be some other guys on that team that actually show up this season. So I'm not too worried about the Colts for a fantasy value, and neither should you.
And holy crap, Marlon Mack, right?
Yeah. That offensive line is still good.
They're great. They're among the best in the league. I'm not going to call them the best by any means. I think there are some teams that are a tier above them, but they're top 10. Absolutely.
Yeah. I tried to buy Marlon Mack in a few leagues immediately after Luck retired. Because I was like, well, he's going to see some touches still. It's going to be Brissett, and we're going to get a little bit of Marlon Mack love. And I'm pretty excited about his first week production.
I'm not going to say that some of these guys shouldn't have been downgraded when Andrew Luck retired. I mean, again, that's such a huge hit to that team. However, you saw tweets from the fantasy footballers and several other analysts where they had every single Colts player with a downturn. They made a point of saying, I'm downgrading every single Colts player. That's what I'm saying. The hype on that team imploding is just, it's out of control, and you need to realize that it's not. They're going to be just fine.
Yeah,
we saw a guy also that had a 13.9% target share break his collarbone this week. So there's some opportunity for guys to really step it up. And T.Y. Hilton could have a 20% target share next week. Would we be surprised at all?
No,
not at all. All right, guys, before we jump into tapping the wire, are there any side takeaways you want to throw in there? Any little things?
The Broncos suck.
Shut up, Joe.
Yeah.
Look at them. They can't even move the ball at all.
You're right, but shut up, Joe.
Flacco's what we thought he was. Elway needs to go, man. That's my takeaway is Elway needs to stop being the GM of that football team. He doesn't know what he's doing at all.
I think he brought in Flacco so that he could just manage you guys into a 5-win season, and he could go ahead and draft a quarterback at the top of this next draft. Go ahead
Why
and get
not
himself
just
some
go
Herbert.
Miami style and just lose all your games at this point?
If the Broncos tanked for Tua, I'd cry.
I think he's smart enough to want to put butts in the seat still.
I guess so. Season tickets are already paid for, though, man. They'll be back next year.
That's true.
All right, that'll do it for the takeaway. I like the new segment, guys. I'm excited to do that this season.
Oh, for sure.
Me too. I thought that was fun.
All right, let's jump into what everybody's been waiting for. Let's tap the wire. Let's talk about the waiver wire. Joe, give me a drop.
Tapping the wire.
All right, let's start with quarterbacks. We have Lamar Jackson on the Ravens, and I'm not saying this other guy's name. Not at all.
Gardner Minshew.
I miss you.
When's Nick Foles coming back?
6 weeks at least. You got to
Never.
deal with this for a long time, at least a month and a half.
Oh, God.
He keeps playing like he did yesterday. It's going to be never.
The rest of your career as a podcaster, Murph, get used to it.
I miss you.
Any week I win sheep dates, can I request that drop not happen?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We can go with that.
Boys, I'm going to be studying real hard this season.
You know what I'm going to do, though? I'm going to put Gardner Minshew in as my cheap date and beat you with him so that I can use it over and over and over again.
You said Gardner Minshew didn't play the drop, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
I miss you.
I hope our listeners find this as entertaining as we do.
No, we're just going to rename the show the Fantasy Torture Session. That's what it's become for me right now.
If you hate this drop, I'm really sorry.
If Lamar Jackson isn't owned in your league, though, back to what we were talking about there, go get him, because even if he doesn't perform the way that he did this week, I still don't know if he's improved that much as a passer. He was making throws that he made in college that he's been able to make as a pro. He just had wide open receivers because Miami might be a D2 school quality defense.
They just called me and asked me if I could play free safety for him. So that was something. I told him, I shot it down. I said, nah, man, I'm good. I don't want to be on a tanking squad.
You got a better offer from the XFL.
You should have signed and then asked for a trade.
I'd have to freeze my feet off in a cryogenic chamber first. And
But no, Lamar Jackson is he's going to have that rushing floor like we talked about. So if he's not getting it done in the passing game, he's still going to go out and get you 8 to 10 points on the ground. And if he scores a touchdown on the ground, he's going to get you 16 without even throwing a pass. So, Yeah,
I think that's fair. And I like Lamar Jackson quite a bit. I ended up in positions where I'm still a big Matt Ryan guy. I know he had a rough day against Minnesota, so I haven't been bought in on carrying too many quarterbacks on most of my shorter rostered leagues. But no, Lamar Jackson, if you can either keep a second quarterback or if you're on the fence with your guy, man, go ahead and go grab him, because I think he is improved as a passer. But he's not going to put up 5 touchdowns every week like he did against Miami. This isn't Pat Mahomes last year. This will be a situation where you can expect him to nab you, call it 22 to 23 a week, I think, because if he's not throwing it that well, he will run. And that's where, as Joe alluded to, that's where his points can definitely help pad your floor.
All right, moving on to running backs. I have Malcolm Brown for the Rams here. The whole Darrell Henderson thing, that apparently seems to be a overhype. It looks like Malcolm Brown's going to get some pretty good usage with Todd Gurley. And if Todd Gurley goes down, he's the next guy up. So he's definitely a guy I'd want to snag if you have a bench spot. And Raheem Mostert for the Niners, if they don't sign another guy, it's just him and Matt Breida this week. So there's value there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kyle Juszczyk might get some work out of the backfield as a pass catcher. I don't know. Like, it's fun to watch when he does. Yeah, totally. He plays too. But here's my thing about these running backs. Like, I like Mostert. Go out and grab him. Not a lot of people are talking about him. But I don't particularly like to go out and spend my fab on the hotness of the week. And Malcolm Brown is absolutely the hotness of the week because he scored 2 touchdowns. I don't think that Todd Gurley is going to be in a situation where he's not getting any goal line work at all. And they basically had a 50% split in this thing. And like I mentioned earlier on previous episodes, if Todd Gurley plays at his previous efficiency at 50%, he can still live up to his value in that offense at his current ADP where he was drafted this year. So don't panic on Gurley, but also I wouldn't go out and get Brown if you're going to have to spend any amount of your fab on him either, because we're not going to see him score 2 touchdowns every week.
Yeah, neither of these guys are going to be like the Phillip Lindsay last year, where the guy that emerges and then you can go get him and sit on him
The
all
Nick
year and ride
Chubb,
him
so to
out.
speak.
Yeah, or Nick Chubb. Yeah, that's not going to be a thing. I don't expect Malcolm Brown to continue to get all of the goal line work. Like, I feel like some of this is, right now the Rams are just pacing out Todd Gurley. They want to keep him in open space, but it's hard to say that that's the case because they also ran him over and over and over again between the tackles to grind out that game. So I'm really confused by the usage. I expect Gurley to be used back by the goal line again in the next couple weeks. So I'd let someone else spend their money on Brown. And as far as Mostert, I'm a 49ers guy. He's nice. We like him. He helps out on special teams and he can, he's a decent enough running back. But if Tevin Coleman misses more than, say, a week, if he gets to 2 to 3 weeks missed, we're probably going to go get somebody. I'd love for us to go trade for a guy. Go give me Kenyon Drake.
Oh, man, would that be awesome.
Release Jerick McKinnon on an injury settlement and go get me Kenyon Drake. And then you're going to go ahead and have that three-headed monster in the backfield. You're not going to love any of them for fantasy, but man, as a 49ers fan, I love the way Drake runs in that offense. I think he could be amazing.
You know that episode of South Park where the internet gets turned back on and Randy Marsh is, that's me if Kenyon Drake goes to Miami.
Mental images I didn't need at all.
You mean he leaves Miami and goes to San Francisco, but we knew what you meant.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go to Miami right now.
My brain just shut off because of thinking of that. Oof. Nice.
Joe, is there anybody you want to add before moving to wide receivers?
Yeah, I think we should try and mention guys that are a little bit lower owned that aren't being talked about just yet. I made this list just based on snap share, guys that are right around or over 50% of the snaps. We got Ito Smith, Jamal Williams, Rex Burkhead, and you already mentioned Raheem Mostert. But those guys, especially if there's an injury in their backfield, if you're playing in deeper leagues where you need to be one step ahead and not have to spend all of your fab if somebody goes down, these are guys that I think would really have a boost if the guy in front of him goes down. And they might have just enough value as like a second flex in a league where you have to start 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers, 14 teams or something like that, where you could get some points with them standalone without the guy in front of them going down.
All right, moving into wide receivers. We got a lot of names here. First up, Joe's boy, Terry McLaurin from the Redskins. We got Michael Gallup from Dallas, A.J. Brown with the Titans, Hollywood Brown with the Ravens with that fantastic first performance, and John Ross with the Bengals. Jeff, Joe just had his moment, so I'm going to ask you, of these players I just listed, who'd be the first one you'd want to go grab? Who would you spend the most fab budget on?
Oh, man, I really like Terry McLaurin. I think he's a technician, but I feel like I'll get outbid there. Somebody's going to go bananas and spend just an absurd amount of their fab to get him. So I think I'm going to go lower dollar here and go A.J. Brown. And it's a little ridiculous, and I'm using the same logic that led me to Adam Humphries and my incorrect DFS pick last week. But I got to watch this guy just running over the middle over and over and over again. And it seemed like every time I looked up, Mariota was looking for him. I actually did have to call the Nashville police and put out a missing persons report for Corey Davis. We still don't know where he is. But A.J. Brown seems like he could be a guy to maybe see a little bit of volume by season's end.
Or next week, maybe.
Or next week, maybe, yeah. Very well could be.
I hated him because of his quarterback situation, but he was my number 1 wide receiver coming out pre-draft. So he's a guy that I was really high on, and I even grabbed some dynasty shares because I don't think that Marcus Mariota is long for that team. Probably Ryan Tannehill either. So he's a guy that, especially if you can buy him in a dynasty, I don't know, maybe wait a week or two because he'll have a down game, but he's a guy you should have your eye on everywhere.
Yeah, and he'll come a lot cheaper than pretty much everybody else on this list. Like, I really love Terry McLaurin. I like Hollywood Brown. I think Hollywood Brown's kind of a Deshaun Jackson type, though. He's going to have games like we saw against Miami where he just goes bananas, and then he'll have another game where he gets you 2. So, I mean, there's going to be a little bit of up and down there. McLaurin, I think, is going to be a great player, but again, someone's going to blow up their fab to go get him. So if he's not already on your roster, you're probably not getting him. Gallup, Ross, they're 2s in their offense at best, maybe 3s. So I'm probably not falling over myself. A.J. Brown seems like a solid get to leave him into my bench.
Do you guys think that Hollywood Brown is going to be the most spent guy as far as wide receivers? Like, people are going to spend the most fab budget to get him of anybody else.
Yes,
because
and
of that performance.
It's absolutely crazy because he played 14 snaps.
Yeah.
Like, he's not fully back from that injury yet. He didn't run any short and intermediate routes where you actually have to put your foot in the ground. He ran over the top on everybody, and Miami is so bad in the secondary that he just ran right by him.
Yeah, now granted, he does play fast. Like, he's playing
fast
at every bit of that sub 4.4 speed that he showed off at the combine. So, I mean, I just feel like there's going to be ways where he'll get bottled up. And I look at what New England did to Tyreek Hill. And all they did is they took their number 2, their fastest corner, and then they bracketed him in with a safety. And then they stuck the one on the opposite receiver. And I could see teams doing that to Hollywood Brown, and that would confuse Lamar Jackson, because I don't think he's quite the defensive reading technician that Tom Brady is, or Patrick Mahomes, or anybody else. And, he's going to have some real down weeks. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle moving forward.
I do like John Ross as a pickup, though. I think he's been so injury prone that he might be pretty cheap. So if you can get him cheap, he played 81.8% of the snaps in week 1. That's a pretty high number. I don't know what's going to happen if and when AJ Green comes back, but Damian Willis played 89.6% of the snaps. So there's room for all 3 guys in that offense to be productive, especially if Andy Dalton can play like he did against Seattle.
Yeah, and I think the Bengals are going to be throwing a little bit more over the next few weeks. Joe Mixon's got a high ankle sprain, apparently. And, those tend to linger. There's no damage from what I've heard, but it looks like that could be a situation where if it lingers or they have to pull back on his workload, could be more Andy Dalton throwing the rock. And I like John Ross as a buy cheap kind of guy for right now. And if you get him cheap and he puts up another good game or two, he's probably trade bait. He's a guy you could probably flip for a piece to help you down the stretch run.
Did you see a report somewhere that it was a high ankle sprain and not a common ankle sprain?
I was watching the bottom line on NFL Network today, and I thought it said high ankle sprain. It may have been just a standard ankle sprain, but ankle sprain in almost all of its forms tends to linger, though.
I follow the Pro Football Doc on Twitter, and I also have joined up because he's giving away for the first 4 weeks. He's giving away all his premium content on his site. It's fantastic. You should check it out for sure. But he reported that by video, he thought it was just a normal everyday basketball ankle sprain, and that Mixon could be back to 100% within a week or 2.
Well, that's still potentially 2 weeks of potentially higher pass volume, which leaves us right in the window of opportunity for John Ross.
Absolutely. I'm totally in on the take. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy on the ankle sprain thing.
Yeah, no, I'm actually looking it up right now. It just says avoids major injury. It looks like I'm only reading headlines, of course. It's just saying he avoided major injury.
Cool.
Another name I kind of want to throw in here just to the last second. Cole Beasley did have 9 targets in the Bills-Jets game. I think the Beasles could be something.
If Jamison Crowder's out there too, he led the league in targets this week. Like, he's a guy that you should really consider as well.
Yeah. Crowder, all of his, catches, they were near the line of scrimmage. And once you get back Herndon after his suspension, I think a lot of those looks are going to dry up. So if you're in a PPR league and you can sell Crowder, I might do it.
Sure. I think he's a sell high candidate for sure. But I think if you can go out and grab him off of the waiver wire in a smaller league where he's not owned, he's going to have some more weeks, like not 17 targets by any means, but he's going to have productive weeks and you might be able to flip him before Herndon comes back.
Right. And Crowder hasn't exactly been the most, durable guy either. So It's definitely a situation where if you've got him and he's putting up some digits and you can flip him for, another piece that might have maybe a higher floor, maybe not quite the same ceiling of 10, 12, 13 targets, it might be worth a look.
I got some other slightly less talked about guys too before we jump off of wide receivers. Both Keyshawn Johnson and Damiere Byrd saw 70+% snap shares. If you're in deeper leagues, go check them out, because if Larry Fitz were to somehow get injured, even though he never does in his career, or if Christian Kirk goes down, which he does get hurt, those guys could see a really big boost in targets. And if they're running an offense that looks like the one we saw over the last 9 minutes of that game, there could be a lot of fantasy production in that offense. And also Preston Williams and Mecole Hardman. Both of the Albert Wilson went down with that calf strain or whatever it is again. And obviously we know what happened with Tyreek Hill. So I'm not starting either of those guys, but if they're out there and you want to throw them on the back of your bench, they could have some production later on.
Yeah, and we know Miami's playing from behind. So they're going to be throwing it. So, the Preston Williams kid, he's definitely got some value right now. We talked about him a few weeks ago, and I was kind of like, I'll pass. But it looks like I'm eating my words a little bit on that one.
He could end up having, this is crazy ceiling that we're not even considering yet, but down the stretch, he could look a lot like Allen Robinson did when the Jaguars were an awful football team, where he has 0 points up until the second quarter when the other team stops playing defense because they don't have to anymore. And then he scores 22 points in the second half. Like, totally plausible. He's that kind of guy.
Is that the year that he went for like 1,400 yards and like 12 touchdowns or 13 touchdowns, something like that?
Totally.
Yeah.
2015, right?
That's a That's a big ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think that that's happening, but I think we could see some games like that down the stretch out of Preston Williams.
That's fair. Do the Dolphins acquire a quarterback to make that happen, or just kidding?
Are
I'm
we
just
calling
bagging on the
Blake
Dolphins.
Bortles a quarterback right now?
Right now, I might take him over the other garbage that's on the Dolphins roster. And I liked Rosen coming out, but man, that whole place is just such a dumpster fire right now.
It's tough when you have an offensive line like that too. Like they're having less than a second to throw the football a lot of the time before they have a guy in their face. So
yeah, I feel awful for Rosen. Actually, the situation he walked into in Arizona, 2 OCs in under a year. You get traded because they drafted a quarterback at number 1. You go to Miami, who's in total tank mode for Tua. And it's like, and they have no O-line. It's like, kid's going to get his head knocked in for the first 2 years of his career, and he'll be playing somewhere else next year. It's just such a train wreck for him.
Yep. It's sad to watch.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for wide receivers. Let's talk about tight ends. I don't really advocate picking up tight ends off the waiver unless you're just doing the stream by stream play, but I do want to mention TJ Hawkinson because if you're going forward, like say the next George Kittle, this guy had a game for the ages as far as tight ends are concerned.
If you're playing with savvy players, they probably already own him. But, you know, if you're just in a home league and he's out there, go get him. Because you look at tight ends and you think, well, he's a rookie. I mean, I even said it on my live stream that I would rather play Austin Hooper than him. Not a terrible call after the outcomes, but still, like, you can pretty much start him. I don't think that he's going to be seeing a matchup like he saw in week 1 every single week. I'm not expecting 25 points out of him, but he could easily be a top 5, top 10 tight end end of season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He looked great. And, you know, there's nothing Matt Patricia wants more than to have a tight end involved in Detroit the way the Patriots had Gronk. Like, and I know a lot of that's kind of the, you know, the narrative, right? New England guys, they want to get there like New England guys. But Hawkinson has a really unique skill set. And I think he could be one of those Gronk-like players where he's big, he's fast, he can catch, he can block, he can do all the different things. And usually it takes tight ends 2 or 3 years, but man, he looked really, really good against Arizona. So definitely somebody, if you got somebody droppable, I'd stick him on the back of my bench and see if he really pans out this year.
If you're streaming tight end already, you start him next week. If you can get him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't do a ton of redraft anymore. I've moved almost exclusively to keeper/dynasty at this point. But in my keeper league, which is the closest thing I have to a redraft, I'm sitting there with Kittle right now, and I don't have a second tight end. But I could easily drop one of my bench guys, and I would feel totally fine putting Hawkinson on my bench. And we only keep 6 on our bench.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
All right, guys, that does it for our week 1 review show. Week 1 is officially in the books.
Hooray!
Woo!
And in other news, the Broncos still suck.
But they're driving right now, aren't they?
Yeah, and Noah Fant just caught a 20-yard pass.
Yeah.
So
Boom.
finally threw to a tight end. I was noticing that before that. I was like, Joe Flacco, who we talk about, likes to throw to the tight ends, hadn't thrown a single pass to a tight end in this game until that.
Hunter Renfrow has 3.3 points. Just an update.
Whoa, there's still a whole half to play. And I already lost this week. Calm down. Don't overreact, Joe.
Watch Renfrow catch like a 99-yard touchdown. It's like he just catches like a fluke pass, takes it to the house, and suddenly, you know, it's Renfro's the man.
I'm into it.
All right, guys, we'll be back on Thursday with the massive injury roundup, some more news, and, of course, our cheat dates for next week, among other things. For Joe at Human Stat Sheet on Twitter, for Jeff at NFL_D Mateo, and, of course, myself at Murphy50, or find us all in the NFL Fantasy Football Discussion Group. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye.
Later.
See you.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Takeaway Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And follow the show on Twitter at FF Takeaway.
Jeff, is there anybody you want to add before we move on to wide receivers? Sorry. Jay, strike again.
I was going to say, no, I think you're supposed to ask Joe that, though, or was I supposed to ask Joe? I got confused.